One of my favorite places, holy places in England that I love to visit, I discovered when I was 22 and at seminary in Durham, about 50 miles north of Durham. Was a tiny little place called Alnmouth, the mouth of the River Aln. It had a train station. Of course, it had pubs, but it had this spectacular old house on a hill overlooking the North Sea. And the woman who owned it gave it to a group called the Society of St. Francis, Anglican Franciscans, or in this country, Episcopal Franciscans. They do exist. And believe it or not, brothers and sisters, they're very like us. Very. Alnmouth, I would go to regularly, and to the friary. There was about half a dozen, 6 or 8, 9 friars. There was always students from Durham University, particularly the theology faculty, and people who wanted to go and find some quiet time to pray and to commune with God. One of the characters that I've never forgotten was an elderly man called Walter. He used to be what we refer in England as a gentleman of the road. It's a nice title, isn't it? Like many, he just wandered from place to place. But he happened to wander to Alnmouth Friary. This story is an example of how we might welcome people. There was a very long table in a refectory. The friars would sit there, the visitors would sit there, and gentlemen and other passers-by that were asking for food, they weren't set around the back. They weren't told to sit on the steps. They were invited to the same table. And so Walter made that his home, and being able to make it his home, he had an address. And having an address, he could have a pension. And so Walter, I never remember him speaking actually, but he was always there, and he was always washing up. And so when he died, and they buried him, they discovered under his mattress quite a lot of money. He didn't spend very much. So they thought, in honor of Walter, they'd buy a dishwasher. And so the dishwasher became known as Walter. And so a man had his dignity restored. His dignity restored. He was with people who respected him and cared for him. So he wasn't like poor Lazarus. The rich man didn't even notice him. Didn't even notice him. And so hopefully, because of the name Christian which we bear, because of coming to a place like this, believing in the eternal God, and we used to sometimes people say misguidedly, well, it's all love in the New Testament and it's all war in the Old, and it isn't. They're incredibly respectful of how orphans and widows should be treated. And woe betide us if we don't. Isn't that right? Woe betide us. You do know what that means, don't you? Well, I was always told, woe betide you if you don't do what you're supposed to do. You got it? You'll be in trouble. God doesn't want us to fill us with fear, but he wants us to fill us with love and find ways. And we do in this parish. When I came 16 years ago, we had a food pantry, and it had been going for decades. We then amalgamated it with Christian Communist Service Center. So we work with almost 100 other Christian churches in the Houston area that give food to the poor, that give women opportunities to learn trades and jobs, to restore their dignity. They have a wonderful food pantry that you so generously contribute to. And the nights will be picking up food from here. If you leave any, And they'll be driving through this afternoon between 2 and 4. And we do this so regularly, particularly during the early days of COVID. And so we work with other Christians to recognize Lazarus in our midst. To ask God to take away the scales from our eyes and to open our heart. And so even if we don't give when the man at the petrol gas station is asking for money, we don't have to look away. We could just look and acknowledge him or her and smile. Because it's still a person. It's a brother and it's a sister. And also over the next few weeks, we're having collections for toiletries, for toothpaste. Very simple things, aren't they? Well, not if you haven't got any money. Or those things we take when we've been to nice hotels. Who doesn't collect them? Are they just piling up in your bathroom? Bring them here. Bring them here, because we work now. We help Father Victor at St. Joseph's down on Houston Avenue. He's got a wonderful arrangement. Showers for people who live on the streets, who have nowhere to bathe, where their dignity is being restored, and where they have food and we can share meals instead of isolated and alone. And so this is an opportunity to recognize the face of God. Larry Payne, who's with us this morning, and we keep praying for you, Larry, he reminded me about a woman called Dr. Bertie Simmons. White woman. Do you know her? Well, there's a talk at St. Thomas University. She's died. But there was this inner city high school that really didn't have a very good success rate. Several principals went there. She came out of early retirement to take it over. She transformed that school. She transformed it. And how did she do it? 4-letter word. Do you know it? Love. That's how she did it. The students, primarily Afro-American, would say, but the teachers don't like us. And she discovered, as their principal, that they were actually right. She transformed that school by loving these young people, who gave them a direction, who gave them an ear, who gave them a heart. And that's what we're asked to do as Christians, to recognize those most in need. And I'm so happy and so proud to be part of this parish where we do. The basket is always there, always there. But Casa Juan Diego, which is a marvelous place that helps people that don't even have a country, don't even have a home. Here we endeavor to restore people's dignity. I found this book on my shelf the other day. I forgot I had it. It's a beautiful book, Sharing the Wisdom of Time by Pope Francis and his friends. And this is one of his friends. Her name's Bertha. And Francis said, she can dream of a better world and help the children develop a vision of a different world. The young people she took care of were tortured souls, and also violent. The time she spent with them taught her to go beyond their appearances and not to look at them superficially. A branch can be broken and not completely cut off. It can still bring sap to the fruit. You have to observe carefully to discern the sap that is passing through to the fruit. A final quote from Francis. Do not let appearances fool you. Look under the ashes for the fire, the ember, the coals, and the flame. Look and look again. Please like, subscribe, or comment below.